Hi, I'm Toad.
And I'm Timberdoodle. And this is not another episode of Adventures with Toad and Timberdoodle, although you may be able to count it as one. Today we are talking about our new book called The Adventures of Toad and Timberdoodle, Leaving Winter Behind. This book was first published in August, and it's kind of the fruit of labor that started way before that. And so we'll just kind of share with you our journey about how we came to be able to publish the book and all the fun that happened in between.
First, you have to know where our names came from, because people do actually call me Toad and call you Timberdoodle.
They do, or Doodlebug, or lots of variations, but close to Timberdoodle.
When I worked in Ohio, our boss asked us to have a nature name. So it would be a non-threatening situation for the kids. So they didn't call us Miss or Mrs., that sort of thing. And I had the name Therese Trilobite, but no one could ever remember Trilobite. So when I got to Fairfield and started to work as a naturalist with my first group, I said to the kids, "Hi, my name's Therese, and you can call me Therese, or you can call me..." And I had that little tiny point where I said, "I can't have Trilobite. They'll never remember." And I said Toad, and it stuck. And I didn't think kids would remember it, but yes, they do. And they would run after me at High V, yelling, "Therese, Toad, Toad."
I was probably one of those kids that
You probably
did that.
were, yes.
And then fast forward just a few years, not
30.
too many, when I was working with you, when I first started to kind of come on board with Jefferson County Conservation, you said to me the same thing, is you have to have a nature name, but we were limiting it had to start with a B, I remember.
Yeah, like Brittney Bear or something
Bobcat,
like that.
Yeah. And I didn't feel it.
You didn't feel it,
that.
gotcha.
No.
Gotcha.
And on one of the field trips.
Your first field trip.
Yes.
The first field trip, we worked together, and she's out leading the kids on a hike, and what does she find but the nest of a Timberdoodle,
Yes.
which is a common name for the American woodcock. And I've been a birder for a long time, and I've never found the nest of a Timberdoodle. And so we thought, that's the name we have to give you.
Yes. And I remember we kind of laughed and said, like, who's going to remember Timberdoodle? Like, that's not a name that some second grader is going to recall. And as I was leaving work one day, there was a kid from a field trip that was riding by on a bike. And as I was walking out, he yelled, "Hey, Timberdoodle!" And I just remember thinking, it stuck. I can't believe it, but it stuck. So that's how we got our nature names, Toad and Timberdoodle. And from there, you had retired, and I had taken the reins as the naturalist at Jefferson County Conservation. But we were still working together quite a bit. So you weren't really all that retired. You were like retired, but still working. And COVID happened. And all of the students that weren't having their field trips that year had bummed both of us out. And we had talked about doing these virtual field trips where we go out, record us out in the whatever park we decided to go to. And do you remember the first one that we filmed?
It was at the wetland.
It was. We had no idea what we were doing.
We did okay.
Yeah. But I remember saying in that first one, this is the adventures of
Toad
and Timberdoodle. This is the first and possibly the last.
Exactly.
And it wasn't, because, people kept commenting that they enjoyed it or learned something from it, and we continued to make those videos for a while.
And then leap ahead a couple years, and someone asks you,
"When are you going to write a book?" And I laughed, and then some people had asked you, and you laughed, right? And then somebody asked us, "When are you going to write a book?" And I laughed, and she said, "No, seriously, when are you going to write your first book?" And that's how it happened. I called you and I said, I do. I think we should write a book. Let's just see what happens.
So you were really, Brittney was really the instigator of it. She kept me on track. and we kind of worked on the storyline together. I was really the nature advisor, because I would say, this animal does this for winter, and this animal does this. And you worked a lot on the storyline.
Sure. And at the very beginning, I remember you saying, if we're going to write a book, it has to be on adaptations.
Adaptations, because that's what I love.
And so throughout the book, you see the different animal adaptations, and it all ties back to how the animals survive the winter, what adaptations they have to survive the winter.
It was also important for them to be Midwestern animals.
Yeah. I remember you saying when I interned with you, there are very few children's books that have characters that are solely from the Midwest. There were books where you'd be reading about a sea otter, and you'd say, well, we don't have sea otters here in Iowa, but we have river otters. Or, different characters like that. And the characters in the book were not necessarily ones that students would be able to see in the Midwest.
I remember years ago working with some of the local teachers, and they were doing a class on the tropical rainforest. And it's fascinating. It's really is fascinating. But where are the classes on the animals in your backyard?
Yeah. So after we had initially, we had kind of hashed out a storyline, and then we thought, well, this might actually happen, but in order to have a picture book, you have to have pictures.
Yes. And while we were doing the Toad and Timber series, my friend Denise Venteicher had seen a few of them, and she actually drew a little picture. It wasn't the same one as this. She drew a little picture of actually Timberdoodle and a frog. It wasn't a toad, it was a frog, and sent it to us for the that we could put on the start of our shows. And so we eventually asked her, would you like to do this for us? We originally thought we'd go with a local artist, but it just seemed right to go with Denise because she had originally shown interest, and she was the one to ask because she loved it.
Yeah, probably the best decision we've made.
Yes, and the fact she talked about the hours and hours she would spend working on the characters. So she hand drew the characters and then scanned them onto the computer and did a lot of work with coloring and such on her computer.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's her background, is graphic art. So.
Yep. So that's kind of how the book all came together. And then at the beginning of August, we did a book reading, and that was quite exciting. And
you had practiced it out on your kids a lot beforehand, though.
That's true. As we were writing the book, there were several drafts, and I would come home and I would read it to my children, and when they would start, kind of moving around or seeming to drift off, I would know we had lost their attention. So we cut that part out, and we just kept adding different things. So one of the things we added in was the animal sounds that, the different sounds or noises that the animals make. We added in the handshake. I think that's my kids' favorite part. So they were definitely...
They know it better than I do, actually.
Yeah. They were definitely a big part of
kind of your editing team, really.
Yes, they were.
Their names aren't on here, but they should
be. Yeah. They worked for ice cream, so...
Oh, nice.
Yes. It's been a fun process. I think the number one question we've got since we've released this book is, when are you going to write a second one? Which is quite funny, because that wasn't really on our radar, but that's very
It's on there now.
Yes. And so I think the best answer to that question is, we're working on it?
Yes.
It's in the works, and by that I mean
we're talking
about it. Yeah. So there's
and we know we're going to the wetland.
Yes.
What a better place to be.
We're going to the wetland.
Yes.
So the books are aimed to get kids and families back outside. One of my favorite things that I've heard is people who have lived in Iowa or in this area for so long, and I didn't know a tree frog froze, that's hard to say, in the winter. Or I didn't know that a woodpecker uses its feathers as a door, and all these little facts that we put in there. Having adults come up and say, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the cool part.
Is
so.
really neat.
We knew it would be great for like kindergarten, first grade, second
Yes.
grade. We didn't know the adults would enjoy it
Yes.
as much.
Yes, very good. So, we are going to read The Adventures of Toad and Timberdoodle in a second video. If you'd like to hear the book, you can click in the link below to hear us read that. And also the book is available for purchase online at barnesandnoble.com. You can just type in The Adventures of Toad and Timberdoodle. Nobody else has claimed that title yet. You can search that there, and our book is available for purchase.